Good morning. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session for Tuesday, August 10th, 2021. It's 9:02 a.m. My name is Ty Menser, Chair of the Board. Commissioner Carolina Mejia and Vice Chair Commissioner Gary Edwards are on the Zoom and will be present shortly. The public can attend through our Thurston County YouTube channel, where this meeting will be live streamed and available. Got a whole crew of staff members that we'll get to as their items come up. We have a very full agenda this morning. County Manager Mira Chavez to my right, Clerk of the Board Amy Davis, and Brian Dominique from Public Information is with us here in the boardroom. So let's get right to it. We start with COVID-19 update. And I see Director of Public Health and Social Services, Shelley Slaughter, and I see a square for our County Health Officer, Dr. Abdulmalik as well. Go ahead, Shelley.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Today is day 552 of Thurston County's COVID emergency response.
Shelley, for some reason, the beginning of the statement didn't come through. Can you start from the top, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Shelley Slaughter, Director of Thurston County Public Health and Social Services, Administrator of your Board of Health. Today marks day 552 of Thurston County's COVID-19 emergency response. In Washington state to date, there have been 495,338 COVID-19 confirmed cases, with 6,177 Washingtonians that have lost their lives. This includes to date 12,727 Thurston County residents that have had confirmed COVID-19, and 124 Thurston County residents that have lost their lives. To date, 825 Thurston County residents have been hospitalized. We've seen 8 new hospitalizations in the last week. Our hospital capacity is very full, with 89.6% of our regional hospital beds fully occupied, 6.8% of all beds occupied by COVID patients, and 6% of our ICU beds. This week, 724 new cases have been reported in Thurston County. This marks the highest number of cases in a week yet. We also saw this our highest daily reported number of cases, which is very concerning. We've also seen our highest test positivity rate to date at 11.8% of tests that are reported to public health. We've had 71 congregate care facilities with outbreaks to date, with 9 that our team are currently investigating. This is also a high number. Our vaccine rates continue to remain steady. They're not going up as quickly as we need them to, given the current situation. However, good news in that our vaccine providers, including Thurston County Public Health, have administered 298,865 doses of COVID-19 vaccines to date. 53.9% of our residents have initiated at least 1 dose of COVID-19 vaccine, and 49.6% of our total population is fully vaccinated. That means that more than half of our population, which does include children under age 12 who are not yet eligible for the vaccine yet, are not protected from COVID-19 at this time. 64.1% of those 16 and older have initiated at least 1 dose of COVID-19 vaccine. 59.1% of 16 and older are fully vaccinated. Of those 12 and up that are eligible, 62.8% have initiated a vaccine, and 57.7% of those ages 12 and up are fully vaccinated. We do offer at Thurston County Public Health and Social Services vaccines 7 days a week in our community at multiple locations. We are at the mall, Capitol Mall daily near the Buckle store. We also this week will be offering vaccines at locations such as Rochester Organization of Families, the Mountain View Food Bank, the Briggs YMCA, the Hands-On Children's Museum, and several others. So we encourage people to please check our Thurston County Public Health and Social Services website for where our mobile vaccine team will be and what vaccines we'll be offering this week. There are also many other vaccine providers, healthcare providers, and pharmacies offering COVID-19 vaccine, and strongly encourage people to get vaccinated as soon as possible if you are eligible. And with that, I will pass it to Dr. Abdulmalik, our Thurston County Health Officer, to share more information on this latest situation.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Dr. Abdulmalik, and I'm the Thurston County Health Officer. I did want to share a little bit about the Delta variant, which is driving a lot of the increase in transmission that we're seeing. So we are currently in the 5th wave of COVID-19 transmission here in Washington State. Our transmission rates and test positivity rates are definitely climbing. I do want to encourage everyone who has COVID-19 symptoms to get tested and stay home until their test results are given to them and their symptoms have improved, or if they do test positive, to follow the directions from public health and isolate for 10 days. From either symptom onset or test positivity date if they have no symptoms. This includes absolutely everyone, including those who are fully vaccinated. We're also encouraging folks to be tested if they are told by public health that they are a close contact of somebody who had COVID-19. In order for the tests to be most effective at detecting COVID-19, they should be performed between 3 to 5 days after last exposure. The contact tracer from Thurston County Public Health will be able to give more details on the specific timing, case by case when they reach out. So please pick up your phone. We will be giving important information. This does include folks that are fully vaccinated. If you are told that you were a close contact and you are fully vaccinated, please wear a mask until you have your test results back, or for the full 14 days if you are able. So that's current CDC guidance for fully vaccinated folks. We are learning a lot about the Delta variant. Its prevalence has risen rapidly, both throughout the country and throughout our state. Modeling does show at the state level that we are likely at around 95% of new COVID-19 cases may be attributed to the Delta variant. So this is modeling data, as the sequencing data does lag behind infections a little bit. So we'll be learning more about that specific number. But the key point here is that the vast majority of new cases can be attributed to the Delta variant in Washington State at this time. The Delta variant is a little bit of a game changer. The good news is that the same preventative measures that we've been taking since the pandemic began are still some of our best, are still some of the best ways to slow the spread of COVID-19. And in addition, we do have the additional protection offered by vaccines. So just a little bit about the Delta variant. It is more readily transmissible than prior variants. The CDC is putting that risk of infection. So when you're looking at one person who has who's infected with the Delta variant during their infectious period. On average, the preliminary data are showing that individuals may infect more than twice as many additional individuals during that period than with prior strains. The good news is that although we are seeing an increase in vaccine breakthrough cases, and again, this data does lag because of the confirmation process that is needed to confirm vaccine breakthrough cases, which are cases of COVID-19 in individuals 2 weeks after their final dose of a COVID-19 vaccine series. The most recent numbers that I've seen have fewer than 200 confirmed cases in Thurston County, but we're still, this is definitely a number that will be changing. The good news is that the currently available vaccines are still very, very protective against severe disease, hospitalizations, and deaths. So even though we are seeing more breakthrough cases, with symptomatic disease, the strength of the vaccines is really in preventing severe outcomes. And we're seeing that hold true. I would like to, the other thing that we've learned about the Delta variant is that transmission of COVID-19 is possible, even for folks who are fully vaccinated if they are infectious. So that's why that's why there's been a change in guidance, and I personally am recommending that people in Thurston County wear masks in public indoor settings, especially where vaccination status isn't verified. And so this is the best way, a combination of getting vaccine when it's available to you, masking, and maintaining distance where possible. All of these things reduce the risk of COVID-19 transmission. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
My concern is that these young people are coming down with this COVID. Are we keeping track of how many young people and if they have underlying conditions? And there's a reason for me asking that. I think if they do have underlying conditions that seem to be developing problems for them, it seems like we might be able to convince folks either to get the vaccination or do something about their personal well-being.
So yes, we are keeping track of individuals, including their demographic information, including age, as well as markers of disease severity, thinking about hospitalizations and deaths. In Thurston County, we are also asking folks for their underlying medical conditions. So we're keeping track of that at a local level. In terms, I would like to encourage everyone who is able to get vaccine to become vaccinated. And I agree that at any time, it's good for us to take care of our personal health across multiple dimensions. So that includes eating well, getting exercise, and taking time to address our mental health, as well as safely connecting with others, keeping in mind transmission risks of COVID-19.
I will add that 43% of our cases this last week occurred in those under age 29, with 187 cases in 20 to 29-year-olds and 124 cases in those under age 19. When
we started this many days ago, as Shelley has reported 500 and something. Anyway, the hospitals, I guess, had cut back on elective activities maybe, and that's why there were plenty of bed spaces. And now you're saying that they're full, which I'm not questioning that at all, but we're still at only about 6% that are COVID related.
That is correct for this week.
Are the hospitals rethinking that, what they're doing maybe from an elective standpoint? Oh, sounds like the county manager has something.
They are. We met with Providence on yesterday.
Oh, okay.
And they're encouraging delays of certain types of procedures. And
so they did provide what my perspective, a grim situation for the hospitals, particularly for St. Peter's Hospital. The CEO provided that right now they have 38 positive patients, which is they have, out of those 14 are currently in ICU, and they have 2 waiting admission because they don't have enough beds. Also on the inpatient units, they have close to 60 individuals waiting to get admitted. From their analysis is of all the admissions within the hospital right now is 55% are non-COVID related. The remainder are COVID related admissions. And also they seen, just on the cases they have seen, a 15% breakthrough for those who have been vaccinated. They will be having that discussion this week to see if they can implement a restriction on elective surgeries, as you stated. And that was the report. I don't know if you'd like to add anything else, Commissioner Menser, but those are based on my notes.
no, that was the gist of it. I mean, the hospital situation seemed to be worse than at any previous point during the pandemic. If we were back on the governor's dashboard, we would be failing that metric and going back to phase 2 from phase 3 or whatever. I confirmed that with them. I mean, this chart right here, okay, I would just encourage the public to take a look. These are, posted documents, but on page 2 of our weekly report, I mean, I think Shelley might have understated the case in a sense. I mean, the worst week of the pandemic was week 40. And they're not dated, but I guess that's around November of last year. And that was less than 500 cases. This week we have over 700. So it's basically, not only is it the worst week ever, it's the worst week by a factor of about 50%. And a massive spike from last week and the week before, from the last couple of months. So I'm extremely concerned. This combined with what I learned from Providence St. Peter's Hospital, with school, with my kids getting ready to go back to school, it's a very concerning situation. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and thank you, Commissioner. Also, I will encourage the public to see. This is a weekly report the public health provides to the board. It's posted. And on page, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And it's the chart, and I'd like to emphasize what Shelley stated. Age weekly, and this is a report from the week of between August 2nd to August 8th. 60% of the cases are for those individuals 39 years and older and younger. 60% are 39 years and younger. So we have an issue. And I share your concerns, Commissioner Menser. It's very concerning.
I agree. Thank you so much for that. And I do just want to clarify that the hospital data that I was sharing was regional 5-county hospital data, whereas County Manager Chavez and Commissioner Menser are relaying our local hospital, one of our local hospitals, St. Peter Hospital's current capacity, which is very dire.
That is correct. Thank you.
Thank you for that, because I was a little unclear there. And I know there's 2 hospitals, but St. Peter's is the bigger. So thank you for clarifying. So it sounds like it's worse locally than even regionally. Commissioner Mejia, are you there?
Yeah.
Question? Go ahead.
I have a couple questions, but they can wait until the BOH meeting this afternoon. I know we're short on time and we have a lot of things to cover.
Okay, very good. Shelley, Dr. A, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, homeless strategies update is next this morning. I see Keely Marino, upper left corner. Good morning, Keely.
Good morning. Keely Marino with Public Health and Social Services. So I understand that we have a full agenda, so I'll try to be very quick. In terms of our rental assistance with Community Action Council, they are pushing out $1 million per week at this point in rental arrears and in rent and utility assistance. So they have hired 9 people specifically to work on getting these funds out and into households that need it in Thurston County. And CYS is also booking along. They've spent over $500,000, and both are on track to be spent out by mid-fall. Really quick scattered site update. So I reached out to Olympia Mutual Aid Partners and asked them for just some general information that I can give you because it's been about 3 weeks. So they have been in earnest on site at the 3 encampments 7 days a week since the 15th. They have intensive case managers and they have site support workers at each of the 3 sites. Since the 21st, they've done 38 basic intakes with folks. That means folks that are just kind of not quite sure how deep they want to get into case management, but they are getting referred into programs and into the things that they need. And 24 intensive case management intakes, so actively working on very specific goals and making safety plans, et cetera. 12 Housing Authority of Thurston County mainstream voucher applications have been filled out, which is exciting. And they've had 134 unique contacts. Also, some of the work that they've been doing has been meeting with their community partners. So they had a meeting with Providence St. Peter's. They had a meeting with Providence St. Peter's security team, and they've also reached out and had a meeting with South Sound Radiology. So really trying to ensure that neighbors, especially around Ensign Road, are aware of who they are, what they can do, who they can call, and what their efforts are. So just wanted to give you that quick update. They're working pretty hard. And then thirdly, just that I just received confirmation that we will be declaring a hazardous weather event for the next 3 days for hot weather. We are working on whether or not we can have staffing in line for a cooling center and what does that look like considering the COVID-19 report that preceded this. And so we did get some guidance from Dr. Abdulmalik on that and what would be required if we could have a cooling center fully staffed. Otherwise, we do have plans. We started preliminary plan making yesterday of increased outreach efforts, water stations at each of the encampments, and just ensuring that we are getting much needed supplies during these hot days out to those who are living on the streets. So we will be having a planning meeting this afternoon to firm up exactly what we will be doing. So potentially a cooling center in downtown Olympia where we had one last hot weather event, and definitely increased outreach into the encampments with distribution of tons of water, sunscreen, aloe, that sort of thing. So that is my report for today.
Commissioner Mejia?
Yes, Keely, could you explain what changed in the Community Action Council? I know that the numbers were coming in a little bit slower, but now you're saying it's over $1 million per week.
I really think it was a capacity increase. So they were able to hire those 9 new individuals. So everyone is experiencing difficulties in hiring, finding folks to fill positions across the board, not just in the homeless sector, but across the board in our county and the state and in the nation. So I think that was the delay. But now that they've got a full staff team, they're able to just really move through those applications at a faster rate.
Thank you.
Commissioner Evans?
No, sir.
Keely, I'm gonna just pick your brain for a second. I've heard a lot of anecdotal stories from the community about landlords who have, maybe they're getting paid from their tenants or through rental assistance, however, and they're indicating to the tenant that once the moratorium's lifted and whatnot, they're gonna be increasing rent, you know, by a considerable amount. And have you heard stories like that?
I have indeed. At the rental housing work group yesterday, we were talking with Nick Yuva, who works at the Department of Commerce in the landlord mitigation program, and was reporting that across the state that rent is being stated to be increasing by 25 and up to 75%. So yes, that is a trend that we're seeing. Not all landlords, of course, but many landlords have decided to.
So perfect. That means that I'm hearing, what I'm hearing is accurate and then, but obviously troubling. And I'm just wondering if maybe in the presentation that you were just referring to, was there an explanation as to what's driving? Like, is it landlords saying, well, the market bears it, so I mean, what is driving it? Are costs increasing to them in some way that's not apparent that would justify these types of I mean, a 75% increase is absurd. I mean, in most markets, in most climates, and especially when we're going to all this effort to put tax dollars toward helping people because of the pandemic and the economic impacts and the job and small business impacts. I'm just wondering, do you have a sense or have you heard of what's driving those projected increases?
You know, my response would be that it would be very speculative.
Yeah, I understand.
I wouldn't be able to answer that directly, but I definitely can look into it and reach out to Nick Yuva, because that's all the work that he does is with landlords.
Okay, thank you, Keely.
Yeah.
Good to go.
Thank you.
Appreciate your work. Next is item 3, which is a review of this afternoon's board meeting agenda. So let's take a look there. We'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Mejia. We'll consider the agenda and board meeting minutes for today's agenda and last meeting, which is July 27th minutes. A presentation from Public Works will start things off. Introduction of Public Works employees. We'll have Jennifer Walker, our Public Works Director. I don't know if Jennifer's here this morning or anything needs to be said about that.
No, she will be introducing county employees to Public Works in the Public Works Department, and they will be joining us via Zoom this afternoon. So, and they will do the proper introductions.
Okay, very good. Opportunity for the public to address the board. County manager's update.
Yes, I have a need to follow up on the public testimony that you received from Mr. Ruiz last meeting that you met. So I do have a follow-up and an outcome related to that testimony. So we have been able to help Mr. Ruiz about the outcome. We have met with him. We provided the necessary testing that he needed in his building. And even if it's not done today, maybe tomorrow, that property will be released from what he was requesting. So I will provide more detail this afternoon. We have been able to work on that, and yeah, good outcome.
Yeah, I'd like to thank staff who helped with that, and I know Patrick Soderberg, who's on the call or on the meeting today, was part of that, and so we appreciate the help that was given to Mr. Ruiz. Right. Questions from the board? Okay. Consent item 3A, Auditor's Office Domain Registration.
Yeah, you reviewed this item a couple of weeks ago, Commissioners, and the request from the County Auditor is for you to authorize the Auditor's Office to change the election domain from the current domain to use the gov.gov, and that is provides additional security to the elections office. And during that conversation, you asked for the county auditor to come and provide additional perspective and how this perhaps relates to the effort that we're going through and updating all of our website. They eventually will have a GOV domain. So County Auditor Mary Hall is here. I want to steal her thunder if you'd like to provide additional perspective on this item, Mary.
Sure. Thank you, Romero, and thank you for letting me speak to you about this. There was a recent bill passed in Congress called the .gov Act of 2020. And what that did was move the .gov administration and control from House Administration to Department of Homeland Security. So this is a recommendation from Department of Homeland Security. Currently, we have 2 redirects. We're still on the county's website, and we actually are at .gov if you go to thurstoncounty.gov. But we have a thurstonvotes.org and a thurstonauditor.org, and we want to change those to .gov. Prior to this bill being passed, there was a $400 charge for each domain, but there is no longer a charge. So it really makes it impossible for bad actors to spoof local government websites, and elections are a target, which is why CISA, which falls under Department of Homeland Security, that's a Center for Internet Security and Analysis, sent out an email, and they're encouraging all election offices to change to a .gov. So we may have a challenge with the thurstonvotes.gov because there is a Thurston County in Nebraska, but they only have a population of 2,000. So we're going to make a case, and hopefully we can get that. If we can't, we're going to need to come back to you again for approval. But for us to get the .govs, it requires signature and approval of the legislative authority, which of course is you. So that's why we're bringing this forward. And I'm happy to answer any questions. It really has nothing to do with the future upgrade of our website, which in my opinion can't come soon enough.
It's coming.
It's coming, thankfully.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Is there any reason why the state of Washington isn't just given a blanket authority on something like this?
They are incredibly tightly controlled. So Department of Homeland Security is the only one that will approve these. And that's why they wanted to have that high level of authority when a jurisdiction requests it. So.
But is it going to be statewide? I mean, it sounds like it ought to be a statewide issue.
Well, it's up to each county auditor and each county really to move in this direction. Secretary of State is encouraging this, and they are .gov. So, and I've been wanting to do this for a long time, but House administration had all these layers. So it's been really easy since it's been moved under Department of Homeland Security and CISA.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a question, Mary.
Okay.
So you mentioned, this is for security measures, and usually, scams are usually done through the phone and trying to get people in that way. Would this just prevent people from hacking the website? Is that the security measure you're trying to prevent?
That's exactly it. Because even if they stole credentials of the people that administer that website, .gov requires multi-factor authentication. So something you have, something you know. So even if somebody got a hold of the credentials, they would not be able to get in and modify our website. So that's the extra control that .gov has, that .org or .us, they don't have those controls.
Thank you.
Greek to me.
County Manager, anything?
Nope.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
So that will remain on this afternoon. We'll have 3B as another auditor item, cancellation of outstanding warrants.
Yeah, this is a new item. Commissioners, you did not review this item, so this came in the last week. But this is a yearly event. The board entertains this. The financial services of the auditor's office is requesting for you to retire close to over 200 warrants. The majority of those are related to jury services and mileage. Is when we issue the checks, and those checks have not been cashed, really. So we have, that varies from $10 to $70. And again, it's over 200 warrants we're planning to retire. There's two big warrants in my perspective, is one for $500 and the other one for $3,425. And so those have not been cashed either. So, and we go from the period of July 2019 to June 2020 is a year-long period. And every so often we just go through this process to retire these warrants. So the total amount of the warrants, of the 208 warrants, is $8,984.56.
I always like to thank the jury members who waive or who do not cash, just because it does make an impact on our budget. And I know there's a lot of people who waive their jury fees on the day of, but a 3,000 and a 500, that must have been a big case. I don't remember that.
No, that's necessarily related to.
Okay, I was like, whoa.
Individual warrants for services, and for some reason they have not cashed that in. So, so one is for $500. I don't want to use the names. That's an individual, and the other one is the $3,425 is to a company. They have not cashed that either.
Are we somehow liable at a later date or something if we do this? I mean,
no, this is established by RCW 36.22-100. There's a certain period of time. On a yearly basis, we need to retire those warrants.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good to go. Item 3C is a commissioner's item, COVID Local Fiscal Recovery Fund 1940.
Yeah, Commissioners, this item has been moved a little bit on the many different agendas. Is because we finally got to the point of the prosecuting attorney's review in this particular resolution, this particular consideration to establish a new fund that will be in 1940, where we can take all the ARP funds and just put them in that different fund other than just non-departmental. This is procedural, just to create the fund, so that will allow us to track all the expenditures more streamlined in a way related to the ARP funds. Robin?
Anything we need to know, Robin, that we haven't already discussed in the past?
No, I think you've heard all of the information.
Questions from the board?
No, sir.
No. Okay, let's look at item 3D, Human Resources, Civil Service, Revised Classification Specifications.
Yeah, Commissioners, you review this item. This particular item is for you to consider adopting the new revised Financial Operations Assistant, Legal Assistant Supervisor, and Crime Analyst classification and specifications. The Civil Service is the one who oversee the different job classifications within the Sheriff's Office. And they have requested for you to consider approving the new classifications. This particular item doesn't bind the board to increase any type of salaries. That request, you need to do it via a different process when you review the 2022-2023 budget. And I believe the Sheriff's Office is planning to submit a request for you to consider salary adjustments on those classifications. So this item is only to approve the revised classifications. And I believe it's prudent to do so, if I may, since everything changes on the classifications, and it's good to keep up to date on those classifications that match the actual activities.
Board.
Oh, no, sir.
Okay, so I have questions on this one.
Yep.
My understanding from speaking to some of the employees is that there's an MOU that was developed between the group and the HR, and it was supposed to have a market study done, classifications updated, and they were done, and I understand that that information is out there, and there's concern that for the board to sort of adopt the new classifications, which have expanded job activities and duties, without any knowledge of what the market study showed, creates anxiety and concern, understandably, in those employees because they don't know what the board's going to do with respect to the compensation, which apparently exists, and the MOU says would be presented jointly to the board, but we haven't seen that. And so I understand that ultimately we'll deal with that in the budget process, but I think it would be reasonable based on what I understand to be past practice and the language of this MOU that the board would at least be aware and see that market study information. So we have a sense of what's coming and we don't create that sense of unnecessary anxiety because, you know, we could pivot and when we see what we adopt, you got to do all these new activities and then we see the price tag and we say, well, we can't afford that. And then there's a disconnect there.
Yeah, absolutely on point. And I was trying to be diligent in terms of the civil service requests. And you're right, because there's a little bit of, you know, connected steps, but not necessarily, and because I want to respect the legislative authority for you to authorize any salary adjustments during the budget process. Not just this, but perhaps many others. But this is, I believe, is a good first step to get to the point of revising the job classifications, and whether the board likes to entertain the salary adjustment is a different conversation. You bring a good point, the market analysis, and I've seen that a little bit and have a sense of the budget impact. But Debbie Brookman is here. If you'd like to add anything related to the comparables. Are you there, Debbie?
I think so.
Yeah.
Good morning, commissioners. I'm Debbie Brookman, Human Resources and the county's labor relations negotiator. So as far as the practice goes of bringing forward market study data at the same time we bring forward classification, updates to classifications, we do typically bring those two pieces together at the same time. But this is somewhat unique in that we did a market study of a larger group of employees. And we have a upcoming market study, a countywide market study, where we are likely going to have data and rewritten job classifications for a multitude of classifications across the county. And because that's coming, to a certain extent, what you're doing today is sort of making some preliminary decisions about what that future process might look like. And that could include separating out the review of the classifications from the review of the market study data. Now, I will say this on the classifications, the intent of the group that worked under the MOU was to update the classifications so that they would reflect accurately the current duties and level of responsibility being performed by our sheriff's office employees. So it shouldn't, they should not reflect expanded duties beyond what is already being performed. In other words, if you approve the classifications, it doesn't mean that the sheriff's office can turn around and start asking these employees to do more or work at a higher level than they already are. Because like I said, the classifications are intended to be an accurate reflection of the current duties that are being performed for the current level of pay that's being offered.
But if the pay was based on the previous classification, the pay range, then there could be a disconnect.
There could be. I mean, we do have other job classifications for which we have market study data where we've not necessarily implemented the market study data. So it's not unique in that sense, but it is definitely the intent of human resources to recommend that the market study findings be implemented. We don't have that briefing scheduled yet. That will be at a future date, closer to, I believe, when the sheriff's office presents their budget proposals for policy level requests, because that's where the budget impact will be felt, is in the sheriff's office. So they're building it into their budget requests.
My point is just that it seems like the relevant piece of information is not whether the classification reflects what they're doing now. It's whether the classification it's not whether it expands what they're doing now, it's whether it expands what their previous classification was.
And that is, I think, on point, this job classification reflects the current activities, may not necessarily reflect they're doing more. So it's just a way to reflect what they're currently doing, because those job classifications are old. And the class and com project countywide also is intended to go through that process and may not result in salary increases, but it will reflect on the current activities that every employee does based on the job classifications.
Commissioner Edwards.
Have there been any union issues raised about the change that we're talking about at this point?
I think that the association has expressed the same concerns to Human Resources as have been expressed to Commissioner Menser, as far as just a certain amount of just concern that if we approve the classifications and we don't present and recommend the market study piece also be implemented, that somehow the work that was done won't be valued and they won't get those pay raises that the evidence indicates are warranted. And my response to that to the association has been, the Board of County Commissioners retains the authority to make the decision about whether or not to implement the market study findings. We need to update the job classifications. Some of them haven't been updated, in excess of 10 years. The language is outdated, it's not accurate anymore. So we really do need that piece in place. But it also feels like the Board of County Commissioners needs to be able to make an informed decision about whether or not the evidence-based market study recommendations are also implemented, because there is significant budget impact. And if it's just an automatic thing where market study data is automatically always implemented when we bring forward a classification update, it could put the county, I suppose, in a difficult position.
But, I mean, we're being asked today to approve expanded job responsibilities potentially from the previous classification to all these things. And if we don't know what that's going to cost to keep our employees at market, we could be in a position where we shouldn't be making that decision, or we're making a decision, we're unknowingly making a decision today to put our employees out of market or and maybe we have to do that for financial reasons, but we don't necessarily know that. And it just seems like we have to, in order to make this decision today about whether we want to expand the duty, and we don't usually get into the weeds of this because you guys usually work this through. This is the first time where I've seen some discord here and I've had to engage. But you're asking me to make a decision about whether to adopt expanded job classifications for employees, not knowing whether we're going to have the financial resources to pay them commensurate to the new classifications, and that seems like a difficult decision to put the commissioners in without at least having the ability to look at, and what the employees expressed to me is the market study's out there. Like, we just need to see it and sort of understand what we're doing. Then when I make a decision to vote on this, say in a week or two, I'll at least have a sense. We haven't formally approved the new budget impact, but we've at least had a sense that when I vote on this, I've done it with the knowledge of what's coming in terms of a potential budget impact. Right now, the commissioners are being asked to vote completely in the dark. We've been given zero information about what the budget impact is, other than being told it's significant, which just raises the red flag that we shouldn't be making this decision until we kind of know what the scale of that significant impact is. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It does. We have costed it out. I certainly could share the preliminary costing information if that's what's needed.
I'm just asking to remove this item today and put it off for a week or two, and then let us get that information from you, Debbie, and then the commissioners can at least make that decision in a week or two with a better sense of what's coming and what the impacts look like.
And the other option is you can delay this item until you can make a holistic consideration that includes a revision of the classifications and the budget later in the fall. I mean, you also always have that option. If you want to coincide the two, we can delay not just for a week or two, maybe we can delay it until the fall.
Well, one of those two feels better to me than what we've got kind of lined out, Commissioner.
Right.
I guess I'm wondering what the rush is. We haven't had this on before, but we're getting it on now for a meeting in a few hours. That's my concern.
I reviewed this item with you 2 weeks ago.
Well, there is a process laid out in the MOU. I'm sure Debbie can explain it better, but it's laid out so that the idea is that the sheriff could prepare the proper budget requests based on that we're going to adopt the classification. So I kind of get it, but as she said before, the past practice and the kind of, it seems like we should kind of have the information at the time. I don't mind doing it in 2 steps, but I think we have a sense of the information on both sides.
Has everybody seen it but us? Is that what I'm hearing? I mean, union representatives, have they seen it as well?
Yeah, they've seen the market.
Yeah, they participate in the market analysis. But again, the market analysis is an analysis itself. Whether you agree on that is a different conversation. That's what Debbie is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Just because there's a market analysis, that doesn't mean that you have to approve the conclusions of that, because you may have a totally different perspective.
And there was a lot of ins and outs about the market analysis that I discussed with these folks, but their main thing was, we can accept where that landed, but we're concerned about this bifurcated process.
So based on what I'm hearing, I think this approach will be, we'll provide that information to you and maybe delay this item until the fall. And then you have all that action all at once.
Well, couldn't we have, and if we do that, couldn't we have a briefing so that we're a little more informed rather than trying to do it in a setting like this, where we've got an agenda that we're not going to finish today no matter what we do?
We're working on that briefing that Debbie stated that.
Okay.
So we'll come back. So we'll take this item and let me touch base with Debbie and HR staff and see when will be the right time to bring those.
I saw Commissioner Mejia nodding. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, no, I was going to suggest that I have a meeting scheduled and I needed some time to have that, so thank you. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Debbie.
Anytime.
Okay, so we'll have 3D removed for today. 3E is the Auditor Financial Services Voucher List, which will become 3D. And any questions on the board on those? Okay. Then we'll go to department items. 4A for this afternoon is a resolution and call for sealed bids for Thurston County Family Justice Center hydronic repairs.
Yeah, I reviewed this item 2 weeks ago, Commissioners, and this for you to consider authorize the department to call for sealed bids to do some work on the Family Justice Center located at 2801 32nd Avenue in Tumwater. There has been recent leaks in the heating water system, and the entire system must currently be drained in order to fix the leak and also change some valves associated with this project. So if the board authorizes the call for sealed bids, staff will come back on a second step for you to consider awarding the contract for the low bidder.
Commissioner Mejia?
No questions.
No, sir.
No? All right, we're good on that. Thank you. Item 5A, interlocal agreement for common interest and joint defense.
Yeah, this is you reviewed briefly this item last week, 2 weeks ago, and this is an interlocal agreement between the county, the cities of Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, Tenino, and Young. And this related to process and policies in response to the legislation, the 2001 that affects fire response as well as law enforcement. During this doesn't have any administrative costs. It's a cooperating agreement between all the jurisdictions here in Thurston County. You asked me to check whether this has been addressed to in front of the Sheriff's Office. I have an email attached to this conversation from Rick Peters, which outlines in more detail what the intent of this agreement is. And let me read out loud to the benefit of the public. I have also met with the Sheriff Naza this past Friday. I raised this issue, and he is fully supportive of this particular MOU. So let me read what our prosecuting attorney stated. To summarize, the purpose of this agreement is to allow the sharing of policies confidentially between the jurisdictions, the county jurisdictions. This is so that we can edit and conform our policies to match each other in the case of multi-jurisdictional responses. It is important their Thurston County Sheriff's Office policies are consistent with the cities to avoid the reporting situation and the new use of force statutes for the sole reason that one department interprets use of the force differently than another. If reporting is required, it should be for failure to follow a policy as opposed to the mere inconsistency between agencies. Rick Peters has spoken with the sheriff about this matter, and he's fully supportive of this agreement. So when Sheriff Naza and I had a conversation on Friday again, I highlighted this issue that's coming, and he's well aware. He's supportive of this MOU.
Commissioner Edwards.
I guess my question on this would be, I understand that the Attorney General has just given, I don't know, advice, directive, or something about the fact that law enforcement should be responding on mental issues, where in the recent past, because of legislation, they've been declining to do so. So I'm trying to figure out how that all fits to make sure we get it right and it corresponds with what our Attorney General is telling us what to do.
So my understanding is because of the Attorney General, each law enforcement jurisdiction need to develop their own policies as to how they're going to be implementing the law based on the new interpretation of the Attorney Generals. This agreement, what it does is making sure that those policies are consistent across Thurston County jurisdictions. That's really what this agreement does, is making sure that we'll have a cooperation between those policies. So when it's a joint response, a policy from one jurisdiction is not in contrary to the policy of other jurisdictions who's responding at the same issue at the same time. That's really what the intent of this agreement is a cooperating agreement between the jurisdictions.
Oh, I don't disagree with doing any of the above that you've talked about. I just want to make sure we get it right.
That's the intent.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, who's driving this? I mean, I like the idea too. It makes perfect sense. But I'm just wondering, law enforcement, like local law enforcement, like Olympia PD and Tumwater PD and the sheriff get together and say we should have something like this.
In the cities.
Let's get our lawyers together and work this out.
And the management of the cities as well are supportive of this. Obviously, you see the agreement is signed by the city managers, and this is asking for you to authorize the signature to me, because MOUs and local agreements is the authority, the legislative authority.
Good. Okay. Well, sounds good to me. Go ahead.
Is the coroner included in any of this? I know that, this specific law affects him too, so.
I am not sure. This is law enforcement response.
Okay.
And I will be curious to learn more from the coroners whether this and what area that response affects them. So, and I believe there's a briefing coming up from the coroner. We can explore that.
Okay. I was just wondering.
Our coroner handles the city. I mean, the coroner's the coroner, right? There aren't city coroners, so he doesn't have to worry about inconsistency.
That's right.
He's the boss.
Well, there's an issue in terms of response and he brought up some concerns, and that's why I'm bringing it up, because I was just wondering, I didn't realize how the law affected him too, and the sheriffs and the individual city's response, how it affected him, and he brought up those concerns, and so I was just wondering if he was just curiosity more than anything.
So I think the coroner has some concerns of the impacts financially to his office. So I'll be curious to hear operationally how that relates to him, and certainly if there's an opportunity, we'll include him. Also related to this, I also talked to Sheriff Naza, and in 2 weeks I will be scheduling a briefing to the board for the Sheriff's Office leadership to come and give you their perspective as to how all this new law is impacting their operations. I think it will be good for them, for you to hear from their perspective all that.
Now, this agreement is basically saying it's an agreement to agree kind of thing, is that right? They're basically saying we're gonna come up with, it's not the policies themselves.
No, it's just making sure that we have an avenue to share
We're gonna work
those.
this out and do it, some sort of a
So there's
shared-
not really, the policies are coming, but it really sets the umbrella as to how we're gonna be cooperating among the jurisdictions of Thurston County.
Okay, very good. 5B is Budget Stabilization Fund 0011.
This is also an item that you have reviewed in the past, and I believe the desire of the board just to take it out of consent and have individual votes be exercised on this particular item. This is to create a budget stabilization fund. This is the mechanics to implement the board's decision, the majority board decision to have a budget stabilization fund. That decision was made during the budget amendment, and it is the mechanics to create a fund where we can put that particular decision, I believe it's $2 million in this fund. Robin?
I have nothing to add at this time.
Okay, any questions from the board? Go ahead.
I guess this is an issue that I guess I disagreed with the process. It was a majority of the board that made this decision. Okay, thank you.
Okay, then 6A is CPED, Community Planning and Economic Development. A, Interlocal Agreement Renewal for Voluntary Stewardship Program.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. My notes. Right here. Back in June of 2021, actually June 22nd, the Board of County Commissioners authorized accepting the grant from the State Conservation Commission. And this is the next step, is to take the grant they haven't put into to work. This agreement is between the county and the Thurston Conservation District to provide services to the Voluntary Stewardship Program, and for the period July 1st, 2021 through June 30, 2023. And again, that's the step in the process. They have been providing those the support to the Voluntary Stewardship Program for the last few years, and this is a continuation of this partnership. Chris Chapeau is here if you have any questions.
I don't have any questions about this.
I don't either, let's move on.
And by the way, it's $150,000, the total cost.
Very good. 6B is Request for Proposals for Hearing Examiner and Administrative Hearings Officer Services.
Yeah, for your consideration, the current hearing examiner's contract and the pro term expires on December 31st, 2021. The department is asking for you to authorize and go on with a request for proposals to secure the services for the next couple of years. You ask and to add an additional, I believe Commissioner Edwards asked whether we can add more clarification on the motion. And we added because it appears that it was going to be securing the services for 3 different individuals, and we clarified that it's going to be the services for one firm that will provide the hearing examiners pro term, the hearing examiners pro term, as well as the Board of Health Administrative Health Officer Services. So, and again, this is to continue with the request for proposals to secure the services. Depending on the result of that, you will see a proposal from the board for you to consider awarding that contract to the best outcome.
Are we, by saying one firm, are we eliminating potential bidders, if you will, that maybe there's an individual that has their own office or something like that? I mean, that's, I'm trying not to, I don't want to squeeze anybody out by how we put it together. Maybe I would defer to the chair. Maybe he knows more about that, but.
Well, I believe 2 weeks ago the conversation was a little bit different.
Yeah, okay.
And that is why we added the one firm. And I think from my point of view, having a one firm provides consistency.
I think an individuals can be a law firm.
Yeah, yeah.
And that works?
I would think so, yeah.
Jeremy, you'd like to add anything on this?
Doesn't exclude solo practitioners from it.
Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. Jeremy Davis, Operations Manager for Community Planning and Economic Development. Thank you for having me here this morning. Yes, so today we are asking for the board to approve us to move forward with the RFP. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the same firm, but Thurston County has typically selected the same firm as County Manager Chavez indicated. This is really good for consistency in decisions that are issued by the Thurston County Hearing Examiner and Administrative Hearings Officer.
I think Commissioner Edwards was asking whether the use of the word firm would preclude a solo practitioner from applying, and I don't think that it does, because every lawyer has a business organization.
Starts at some point.
And that is considered a law firm under the law.
Yeah, and typically the board has selected one single person to serve as an appointed hearing examiner, but it does not preclude the Board of County Commissioners from selecting different persons and or firms for those two different services. So the board could theoretically select a hearing examiner, an administrative hearings officer, and a hearing examiner pro tem as three separate firms. Although we have not typically done so. We last issued an RFP in 2017 for these same three services and ended up selecting the current firm for hearing examiner and administrative hearings officer and the hearing examiner pro tem.
Oh, sure.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Item 7A is Human Resources, Contract Award for Third-Party Workers Compensation Administrator.
You also reviewed this item, Commissioners. You did my notes a couple of weeks ago. And this is for your consideration to award a contract to Stop Claims Corporations for workers' compensation claims and handling services. This is not to exceed $72,000 annually. This is a fee for service. It's not like we're going to be awarding the contract of $72,000. And since 2014, we have been using the Professional Claims Intervention Services Corporation, CPI. And in 2019, the board authorized work with the request for proposals just to make sure that we go through the due diligence. And that during the COVID-19 was stopped, was resumed in 2020, in December 2020, and here we are with the results of that process. And Carol Renberg is here. Do you have any questions?
I don't think I have any questions on this.
Mine were answered last time, so good to go on 7A. Thank you, Carol. Public Health and Social Services is next. 8A, Interlocal Agreement with Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization for Criminal Justice Treatment Account Funds.
Yeah, you may recall early in the year, you authorized the department to secure the criminal justice treatment account for the fiscal year 2021-2022. And the annual allocation was $367,222. The result of that process is what we call the CJTA. There is a board composed by I believe the prosecutor, the sheriff's office, and other members. They determine where in the courts where this particular allocation should go. So based on that decision, the proposal for you is to get into a local agreement with the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization for $75,000 to provide from the CJTA funds, and that will be for the period July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. So it's the second step in the process. The first, you authorized receiving the funds from the CJTA money, which comes from the State of Washington Healthcare Authority. And this step is to start awarding those contracts. Carrie Henning is here, I believe. If you have any questions. Oh, Shelley's here.
Harry is not here today, but I am here. The board has
For
me.
Shelley, Commissioner Mejia?
No, sir.
Commissioner Edwards? No, good to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley.
Number 9A, Public Works Project Prospectus and Local Agency Agreement for 2024 County Road Safety Project.
Yeah, this particular proposal is for you to authorize signing the prospectus and local agency agreement to secure funding of $2,840,000 of federal funds. And this is specifically related to the Highway Safety Improvement Program that will be slated to be completed in 2024. Under normal circumstances, this particular funding requires a 10% match. We were fortunate enough, and I believe the department, kudos to the department, which lobbied to have 100% reimbursement, so there's no match on this particular grant. Some of the activities that they will be implemented by this program will be improvements to include installation and enhanced curb signing, clear zone improvements, rumble strips, speed feedback signs, and other roadside improvements locations. The specific of those improvements will be coming later, obviously in a couple of years. You will be authorizing the issued bids, and at that point we'll give you more detail on those improvements. I believe we have Brian Mayer here. If you, from Public Works, if you have any questions.
Question for Brian? No. Go ahead.
I'm not gonna talk about rumble strips at this point, because I do think that it's a good process you're getting. But I am curious, is it gonna cover things like, a couple of years ago, we had some grip and traction application on the roadways for icy corners and different things like that. Might that also fit in that criteria, do you know? It was somewhat experimental, but it seems to have been quite successful. So I'm just wondering if we're gonna try and expand that program.
Brian, I think Commissioner Edwards is praising the high friction payment that we have implemented in the past.
Yes, so hi, I'm Brian Meyer with Public Works Design. So this project did include some high friction road surface treatment, yet the dollar amount that was given to do that wasn't very much. So it was $400,000, I believe. So right now, Matt Unzelman has been working with local programs and trying to use that money to do some other improvements in the county that would be a better use of those funds. And he's on this if there's any questions about the other improvements he's looking at doing.
Brian, I'll expand on that. Matt Unzelman, Thurston County Traffic Engineer. Commissioner Edwards, I'm glad you recognized our high friction surfacing program. Thank you. Basically, it's an economies of scale thing. And to install high friction surface treatment, it involves hiring a very specified contractors. And a lot of these contractors aren't in the state of Washington even. So in order to attract the appropriate contractors and to get good unit bid prices to install high friction, it really does need to be a larger dollar amount. In the past, we had a couple of high friction contracts that were in excess of $2 million even. So, and that's why, we're not saying that we're not going to not do high friction surfacing in the future. We would just do it in a bigger contract. I'm working with local programs to.
But I tell you what, something's freezing up there on Matt, but I'm okay. I'll defer to Matt's expertise on that. I'm good with it. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay, good deal. Let's go to 9B, interlocal agreements for 2021 solid waste management plan and hazardous waste plan updates.
Yeah, this is one of the many steps related to the solid waste contracts. The board has been appraised on the last few months, and perhaps Commissioner Messi, Commissioner Edwards for the last couple of years. So this particular interlocal agreements with the cities of Lacey, Rainier, Tenino, Yelm, Tumwater. It's really just to bring all the jurisdictions together to align to the solid waste management plan and to the contract that we're currently negotiating for the solid waste services. Also in this contract is very specific related to how solid waste is going to be managed by the local municipalities. And this is a good approach. I have to give kudos to Karen Weiss because she has been working with all the many jurisdictions, providing briefings to the city councils and everything else. And finally has come to a point in which the board can consider signing those interlocal agreements related to the solid waste management plan.
Maybe I just forgot. I'm sorry. Why is Olympia not included in this, or have you already?
They've already approved that in local
Okay,
agreement.
that was
Yeah.
like, maybe I just blanked on it, but
Yeah,
thank
good,
you.
good catch.
Good catch,
They were a little bit ahead of the rest of the jurisdictions.
My question's been answered.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Karen, anything we need to know?
Nothing at all, thank you.
Thank you.
Good question.
Let's go to item 9C, also Public Works, interlocal agreement for hub junction maintenance. Oh yes, I do remember this one.
You remember this. This is a little bit of history for the viewing public. There's a couple of maybe 2014, 15, we commemorated the joint effort building trail infrastructure from the county's Chicago's Western Trail with the city of Lacey on their trail that goes east, and the city of Olympia, the Woodland Trail that goes west. And the way we commemorated, we built this runabout, a small runabout for for pedestrians and bicyclists. And it has a little bit of a monument, you know, a little bit of inscription. That was a great success, a great achievement, I believe. They finally got to the point of the jurisdictions working together to provide trail activities to the citizens of the county, not just the cities of the county. And but over time, the maintenance has been a little bit off. There has been a lot of graffiti. There has been the garbage is not picked up on a consistent basis. And sometimes we don't know whose jurisdiction is to do that. And Ed Marson has the parks operations managers have worked on this agreement just to make sure that we have a maintenance agreement with the many jurisdictions as to what days everybody's going to be providing the services in terms of the county and the cities. So this is a good approach. I think on the end, it's going to save some money to the county, and also it's going to provide a more reliable services to that facility. Like to add anything else, Ed?
No, I believe you covered it pretty well. Thank you.
No questions.
Good to go. We went through this last week pretty substantially. Okay, that takes care of the business items. We'll have our standing items under item 10. We'll have a public hearing at 3 p.m. regarding impact fee exemptions for low-income housing and daycare, basically early learning facilities. And that'll be good, and then commissioner action may follow immediately upon the conclusion of that hearing.
And this is, and thank you, commissioners, as you stated, is a continuation of the traffic impact fees. I believe this is something the board has been very interested in, how you can support the implementation of child care centers, not just in South County, but across the county, unincorporated areas. This was a new law that allows the board to implement exceptions of traffic impact fees for up to 80%. This particular proposal is intended to do so, and that it requires an amendment to county code. So this afternoon, since we need to have a public hearing every time the board considers amending the Thurston County code, you will receive public testimony on that particular approach, suggestion. And for your consideration, depending on the public testimony, will be for you to contemplate and approving this ordinance amended code.
Questions here?
No, sir.
All right, very good. So it's 10:20. I'm going to propose we break till 10:30. Pick up with the Board of Health. Actually, that's out of order from the morning agenda, but I think we should go in order and pick up with the Board of Health at 10:30.
Okay.
Okay, we're back for the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session. After the mid-morning recess, it's 10:32 a.m. and we are picking up. We're going to skip item 4 temporarily and go to item 5, which is a review of this afternoon's Board of Health draft agenda. That meeting will get called to order 3:30 or potentially shortly thereafter, depending on when the board meeting for the county commissioners ends. The 2 p.m. meeting. We'll consider approval of the agenda and meeting minutes from May 11th. And then we will have a proclamation for Immunization Awareness Month. And Shelley Slaughter, our administrator for the Board of Health, is here. Shelley, anything we need to know about the proclamation?
Good morning again, commissioners. This proclamation that we are proposing the Board of Health approval recognize Immunization Awareness Month and the importance for everyone, including children and adults, to get recommended and required vaccines, to include vaccines such as measles, mumps, rubella, flu, pertussis, diphtheria, tetanus, varicella, hepatitis, and of course, COVID-19, especially in light of the information we shared this morning. And Gretchen Toller, our maternal child health manager, and Mark Moffitt, our incident commander and lead for COVID-19 vaccines, will present this item this afternoon.
Commissioner Edwards.
You rattled off a pretty extensive list. Are those required vaccines that it takes, say, to be in school?
Some of them are, yes.
Could, at some point, could you give us a list of vaccines that are required to attend public school, for an example? I guess that meets all the requirements, is that right?
Yes.
I guess you have others that are optional, but at least what the schools require now. I don't know if that's in law, if that has to do with the school superintendent, or who oversees that particular portion, because I know there's some questions that come up. And I'm trying to figure out what the difference is between what we're doing on COVID versus anything else. So why not? Could we come up with something like that?
Would you like us to cover that in the proclamation presentation this afternoon, or address that in a future briefing or update?
Well, I think it's just always good to let the public know we're already doing X, Y, and Z is the only way I can put it, because I don't know. And we strongly recommend maybe a vaccination based on the issues that you briefed us on this morning.
Okay, yes, sir.
Is that okay with the board?
Yeah, I think it would fit in if you had the information. It would fit in into sort of a preamble to the proclamation,
if possible. Yes. If we're not catching it too late.
Right. Okay. Very good. And then we have a second here. We have we're going to be doing a proclamation for Overdose Awareness Day.
Yes, Overdose Awareness Day is celebrated nationally on August 31st, and we're asking the Board of Health in advance of that date to proclaim August 31st in Thurston County Opioid Awareness Day to remember all people that have lost their lives and those of us that have lost loved ones to opioid overdose, and provide further information on how to recognize the signs of an opioid overdose, how you can prevent it, and how you can intervene with life-saving medications such as naloxone. And our Thurston County Opioid Response Coordinator, Katie Strozik, will present that item. And Katie's here if you have any additional questions.
And our Vice Chair of the Board of Health will be reading these two proclamations.
I know, I was like, I got my work cut out for me today.
Take a look. All right, any questions from the board on that?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
All right, then let's go to the next piece of the agenda, which is opportunity for the public to address the Board of Health. They'll have 4 minutes. Item 4 is a Thurston Thrives update.
Yes, so this item will be presented by Doug Ma, who is the policy coordinator for the Thurston County Chamber Foundation, which is the backbone organization for Thurston Thrives. We have a contract and a collaborative partnership with Thurston Thrive's coordinating council and the many action teams that have been doing great work. And we typically have a quarterly presentation on what Thurston Thrives has accomplished and what they are focusing on. And Mr. Ma will be providing that information about what has been accomplished and the new focus that Thurston Thrives is undertaking to help promote racial equity in our community, especially to address disparities in the BIPOC community in alignment with the Board of County Commissioners' priorities.
Questions on the Thurston Thrives update? Okay. Commissioner Mejia. See a puzzled look in your eye.
I don't know if I can ask the question. I'll just leave it for later.
No questions, sir.
Okay. Item 5 is 2021-22 Thurston County Opioid Response Plan. And Katie Strozik is with us.
Yes, if I may provide a brief overview. Back in 2018, the Board of Health declared the opioid epidemic a crisis in a public health crisis in Thurston County, and tasked us with forming the Thurston County Opioid Task Force and a Thurston County Opioid Response Plan, of which the board approved in 2019. For the past 6 months, the Thurston County Opioid Task Force has been working hard to update the plan, and today Katie will be presenting that plan to you and asking for your approval of 26 strategies in 6 different areas, and those areas include prevention, treatment, overdose, pregnant and parenting, equity, and the legal system. And Katie's here to provide further information or answer any questions that you may have.
Question for Katie?
No, sir.
I don't know that it's a question for Katie as much as I heard something on the news about our Attorney General having a trial coming up on the suppliers of the opioid next month. Is there something there that fits?
I think you had an executive session on that while I was on vacation.
I don't think this won't touch on. It was related to that. This was in the news. I'm just wondering.
And also the option of continue to be part of the Attorney General's.
Apparently, there was a court ruling in the Attorney General's favor, and something moving forward. I see it made.
No, I think this lawsuit is moving forward. Yeah, you're right.
I thought there was maybe a trial. I was wondering, is that trial going to be taking place in Thurston County or elsewhere, or does anybody know yet? Sounds like it's moving forward.
Yeah, but I don't think it's in Thurston County.
No.
It's a federal court.
Okay, more to come.
Katie, I saw you nodding. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, so what Commissioner Edwards is talking about, I think, is they struck down the settlement offer, and the state itself is going forward to trial with multiple pharmaceutical companies, and that'll be up in King County in the fall. That'll start. So that's not Thurston County specific. That's the state's lawsuit.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions on? So you're going to go over this, Katie, I'm sure, but I guess I'm just I'm not remembering whether, like, the process-wise, do we have an obligation under our resolution to do an updated plan every year, or is this like is there an action item here, or is this a presentation of information, kind of how you're updating the plan, or do we need to take some kind of action?
Some action.
The action item would be to adopt this revised plan. We've taken the prior plan and moved forward sections that we're still working on that have momentum or that have funding, and then adjusted some that needed kind of revisions made over the last 2 years, and then added new ones as well based on recommendations of the task force, the strategy discussion groups that we've held, and the work groups themselves.
Okay, so it's not like we have a deadline or an obligation, but you feel that it's appropriate time to update the plan, and you're asking the board to adopt that update.
Correct.
Okay, I got it. Good. Then let's go to item 6, 2020 Integrated Pest Management Report. And Patrick Soderberg from Environmental Health, and Art Starry, Environmental Health Director. Shelley, what do we need to know at this point?
Yes, so Patrick Soderberg, our Solid and Hazardous Waste Program Supervisor, will provide an overview of the Thurston County Integrated Pest Management Program and the Thurston County IPM, that's Integrated Pest Management Report. And Patrick and Art are here to answer any questions or share more information about what they will cover today.
I can say that one of the reasons Shelley and I have had talks over the last months about, presenting this item, and I guess my hope is that as a layperson or as a citizen, there's always concern when chemicals are used in, whether it's water or on plants or anytime chemicals are used, there's certain citizens that are concerned. But as you get deeper into county government, you realize that the way those decisions are made and handled, there's different pieces of it. It depends what chemicals you're talking about and on what exact lakes, because some lakes are handled different than other lakes, and some types of applications are handled different than others. And I don't think the public has any real clue about that, and even commissioners, I think, get confused about it. So I guess my hope for this whole thing is that the public and the commissioners walk away with kind of a better understanding of how chemicals are used in our county, for what reasons, and who makes the decisions on how they're used and which ones are used and stuff like that. So I know these two items kind of connect. We talked about connecting the noxious weed prescriptions with the integrated pest management. So anyway, that's my preliminary comment. Patrick, Art, anything you guys wanted to let us know in preparation for today?
Thank you. This is Patrick Soderberg. I do the Integrated Pest Management Program Coordinator position, where I assist the departments, the board, as well as a citizen advisory committee to understand the concepts of the policy. So I can go through that this afternoon, discuss kind of how the process flows from request of using chemical applications and how that gets reviewed, products selected, and then the process of approval by the Board of Health. So I can go through that process, and then I also plan on going through the summary of the recommendation from the advisory committee that happens each year on our annual report to the board.
Awesome, perfect. Any questions, Commissioner Edwards?
I guess I would just maybe at a higher level, everything we do is okay as far as Department of Ecology and the state of Washington, is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay, just want to assure the public that we're not stepping out of bounds, I don't think, on it. Thank you.
Okay. Then item 7, noxious weed prescriptions. Maybe talk about how that's what's gonna be covered there.
Sure. And so what I try to do is whenever I bring forth the annual report, I try to have the board hear from the advisory committee on the previous year's activities and their recommendations before moving forward with next year's requests for approval for prescriptions. But from the advisory committee standpoint, they do them concurrently. So we set up a meeting, they review the annual report, and then we go into a discussion about what we're proposing to do in the future, which is to adopt new prescriptions. And so they work with county staff to develop those prescriptions to best follow the county policy. And then once they're completed, then we make a recommendation to the board to adopt them. So these 3 prescriptions for noxious weeds have all been reviewed and recommended for approval for next year's use.
Questions from commissioners?
No, sir.
Pollinators, I guess but will you maybe get into that about when you apply and so it doesn't have effect on, collateral damage, I guess?
Well, one of the things that we do is, so when we review, the Environmental Health Department does a review of the chemicals. If they're known to cause adverse effect to pollinators, we make sure that the department staff knows that. So the ones that are being recommended aren't known to be harmful to pollinators per se, but there's also provisions that the noxious weed control staff do as far as, looking to see if there are pollinators and what times of year that they apply these herbicides to best, reduce the chance of non-target toxic effects. So I would honestly think that the departments themselves could better address how they deal with pollinators when it comes to the application, but I can most certainly address the review from the chemical standpoint of the pesticides we use.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. We'll look forward to that this afternoon. Board of Health members will discuss health-related activities and accomplishments. We'll have a health officer's report from Dr. Abdul-Malik and a director's report from Shelley. Shelley, does that cover what we need to cover today?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Look forward to that meeting. Moving on to, or back to item 4, which is a review of next proposed agenda for next Tuesday, August 17th. Meeting would be called to order at 2 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Edwards. Consideration of approving the agenda and board meeting minutes from this afternoon's board meeting. We'll have a presentation from Public Works on N1 emergency bridge repair project completion.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. Public Works will provide you a perspective as to how they went about in doing some bridge replacement, bridge repairs at the Nisqually Cutoff Road. You may recall there was a briefing early in the year as to how this bridge was having some structural issues. Obviously, it's not replaced, but I think the department is going to be provided with that perspective as to how they were able to manage and address the structural deficient needs this bridge was experiencing. The total cost was $125,000, and again, Scott Lindblom, the county engineer, maybe Matt Elseman will provide more details as to this project.
Thank you, County Manager. Matt Elseman, Thurston County Traffic Engineer. I'll be pinch hitting for Scott on this presentation. And I don't think there's much more to add, except it's always good to share good news, and we look forward to it.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions from the board?
No, sir.
Okay. Opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update. Anything to say at this point?
Not at this point.
Okay. Consent agenda, we have items A through D. 3A is a Astound Broadband / Stone Peak transfer of indirect control.
Yes, sir. Back in March 23rd, 2021, the Board of County Commissioners granted Astound Broadband a non-exclusive telecommunications franchise to operate within Thurston County. Well, since Astound was sold to the Stone Peak outfit, and this particular item is for you to concur in transferring all the financial and legal aspects of this franchise agreement to the new owner. Is procedural, no financial impacts to the county, and again, it's just to acknowledge the sale of Astound Broadband LLC to Stone Peak.
Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay. Item 3B, Public Works, increase to existing change fund.
For your consideration, Commissioners, the department is asking to increase the cash fund by $300 on the Rainier Dropbox, and for a total of $1,400. There has been a lot of increase on the cash transactions that needs to have an additional funding capacity at this particular location.
So the current amount is $1,100?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, you go up to $1,400 if the board approves this.
Okay. Anything?
No, sir.
Okay. Item C is a sheriff's office item, contract with Rainier School District for school resource officer.
Yeah, this is a renewal for the upcoming school year for 2021-2022. The Rainier School District has reached out to the Sheriff's Office to provide resource officer services, and for the cost of $40,000. And again, it will be for the school year 2021-2022. Under Sheriff Ray Brady is here. If you have any additional questions? And again, this is a renewal for what has already been in place.
Commissioner Mejia?
No question. No, sir.
No, I've made many comments in the past about this and spoken with the superintendent of Rainier, so we'll see how the state law works. Under Sheriff, good. Thanks for joining us. Anything you'd like us to know?
No, we've worked with the Rainier School District for a long time. This is a renewal of our contract with them, and we have a great relationship between the school district and the city of Rainier and the sheriff's office. So we would greatly appreciate your consideration for renewing this.
Okay, thank you. Voucher list. We will address any questions in the upcoming week. And so we have a shorter agenda there for next Tuesday.
It's going to be very short in terms of because the consent agenda will be approved as normally and as a whole, so there's no department item, so it's going to be very, very short agenda. But I recommend the board to hold that meeting since you couldn't hold one last week.
Yep.
And although short, but I think it's worthwhile.
Well, it helps in keeping the other ones from being so long and difficult, so makes sense. All right, well then that takes care of August 17th. That brings us to item 6 on this morning's agenda, which is a review of proposed proclamations. I see August 31st, we have National Preparedness Month.
Correct. There are no other proclamations for review.
I see 4 for September, and Day of Service and Remembrance, National Hispanic Heritage Month, Constitution Day, and Voter Registration Day. And I guess my question is, Constitution Day, what is that about?
I can distribute a draft proclamation for that one we have. If there are any that you would like to remove or reschedule, we can.
I like to focus on the most important ones, and yeah, just let us see that in advance, because there may, I mean, maybe it's good. I don't remember doing that in the past, so I'd like to see what it's about. We can talk about later. Yep. Any other questions on these?
No, sir.
Okay. Then let's go to item 7, advisory boards and commissions.
There are no applications for review this week.
Okay. Let's go to PIO check-in with Brian.
Good morning, Commissioners, County Manager, Assistant County Manager, Brian Dominique, Public Information Officer for the Board of Commissioners. I just have a couple updates today. Our latest episode of Coffee with Commissioner has 289 views, which is the highest viewership of a county program like this, which includes its predecessor, the Thurston County Connection. So congratulations, Commissioner Menzer.
Agriculture.
That episode centers on agriculture in Thurston County and is hosted by Commissioner Menzer. And I'm in the planning phases for our next episode with Commissioner Mejia, and that will be scheduled for later this month. I don't have a date solidified yet, but I'll be working on that. And then I'm also working with Thurston County Medic 1 to commemorate the agency's 47th anniversary. That happened this year. Well, I think August 4th is their 47th year anniversary, so we got some communication going on about that. And finally, the Historic Preservation Grant application period is open now. I sent out a news release this morning detailing how historic preservation organizations can apply for grants of up to $5,000, and the application period ends on September 22nd. Pending any questions, that's all I have.
No, sir.
Are we still planning a September climate panel that you had talked to me about previously?
Yes, that's still in the planning phases. I actually am sending out the outline for that to the panelists this morning. Nothing's changed a whole lot from when we last spoke, other than we're going to be dropping one of the panelists. So we're going from 5 to 4, but we're still looking at September 20th.
The panelists will be the chair of the Climate Action Steering Committee from Olympia, myself, and remind me who else is on that.
Director Shelley Slaughter, Director Shelley Slaughter, our Public Health Director, and Allison Osterberg from TRPC.
Okay. Okay, sounds good.
I have an
Yeah,
item
County Manager.
related to this. I am a member of the International Association of County and City Administrators, and this is a large organization. Their conference is scheduled to be held in Portland, Oregon in October of, I believe it's October 3rd to October 6th. Through that process, I received a very interesting email, and it was from the ICMA, that's the name of the organization, ICMA TV, because when they go, that's international conference, they like to showcase a specific jurisdictions. They're nearby the conference site. So it was intriguing to me. So I had a meeting with the ICMA TV, and they offer a full day production to showcase Thurston County at the conference. And it will be a rolling 5-minute video of anything that we would like to showcase about Thurston County. The result of that, they're going to be putting in a YouTube channel featuring the beauty of Thurston County from my perspective. And there's also going to be the ability to have the 1-minute videos for us to use it later on. So this is all encompassing related to the conference, and after the conference is completed, we will own all the footage for us to use in whatever means and methods we want to showcase Thurston County. That seems to be a very good approach. We will be in charge of developing the story. We will be in charge of what is it that we need to do, and the production company will come here to Thurston County for 1 day. And go through all the areas we would like to highlight. I believe that this is a great opportunity for us to showcase at the national level Thurston County. There is a cost associated with this. Everything that I just described has a cost of $22,000. I believe it's a worthwhile investment. We do have capacity this year to embark on this process. So if the board agrees with this approach, I will start working with Brian and Megan and start connecting with the production company to start developing the story. And I'm sure some of the board members will be involved in that as well, just to make sure that we capture your perspective and what you'd like to highlight on this particular venture.
Are there videos of other jurisdictions who have done
Yes,
it that
I
we
can probably share. I shared the video with you. The production is just amazing. So I will forward those some of the sample videos for you to see that. Yeah. You saw those videos. You can provide a perspective on that.
Yeah, the production quality is high. Very good production quality. So I like Ramiro said, he shared it with me. I think I saw 3 of them, and all of them were pretty spot on. So I think it's definitely value added.
Sure.
Recognizing this is going to be featuring on Thurston County, but have you communicated any interest to either the tourism folks for the county or the Economic Development Council that they might want to participate in several ways? One of them would be financially, but
yeah, all that at this point it was just for me to bring this idea.
I mean, I'm interested in it, but if we could share the cost with an entity that had, I don't know that they have a bigger budget, but they could help us with this particular endeavor, and it would benefit all parties concerned, it sounds like.
Yeah, if there's an opportunity to share the cost, absolutely.
Okay.
For me, it was just make sure that I bring this idea to you because time is of the essence. The conference is in early October. If the boards agree on this, we start embarking on this process and see where it goes.
What does this have to do with the timing and the conference in October?
Because this video will be featured at the conference. It will be a rollover video to all the conference attendees about Thurston County.
And what is the product at the end of it? You said a 5-minute video?
So it's a 5-minute video. They will be rolling over at the conference about Thurston County. And also at the end, after the conferences, we own that video for us to use however we see adequate. And also all the footage, because they're gonna take a lot of footage, that also will own that footage as well. And they also will provide a revised 1-minute video that we can, put on Facebook or anything, so I think it's a good venture to go through this. But
And out of what resources would we be paying?
It has to be the general fund, and we do have budget capacity within the commissioner's budget this year, so I'm not asking for any additional budget revisions. Robin?
I guess my thought is, or my hesitation is just that, the website is a super high priority, and that the budget for that has gotten higher and higher. And I know COVID was part of the delay, but for whatever reason, it was supposed to be done by now. And so, I mean, that I think is going to make a lot more importance to our county than a 5-minute video. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I guess you bring up COVID. Well, maybe we could use this as an opportunity, encouraging vaccinations or something and paid for with CARES funding. I don't know that that'll work, but it might. I always like to stretch it out a little bit and see if we, can get a little piece of the action spread out.
Well, I see it, for me, the way I see it would be kind of a promotion of our local businesses. And I like Commissioner Edwards' idea of partnering with Experience Olympia and Beyond and the EDC, and maybe putting like the Bountiful Byway on there, and just a way to promote local businesses that have been struggling because of, COVID, and helping out. I feel like that would be a great promotion for us too, and it would help the community in a way if we're getting out the word about Thurston County and all the great stuff we have here.
Some of my initial thoughts related to that is the Bountiful Byway was a key piece. We have been very successful in fish pier removals. They has, this local, national, international awards is something that we need to be proud of that. And also for somebody who doesn't know about Thurston County, it's the capital county. Highlight pieces of the state capital and highlight pieces of the waterfront. Our trails are great trail systems. We have a lot of development in the Grand Mountain area. We have distilleries that are coming to this region as an economic driver. So I believe there's a lot of opportunities we can highlight. And although I agree that probably we can find ways as to how we can probably maximize the funding, but with all the respect, narrowing down on a vaccine video just to get advantage of the ARP, I think we may miss the mark on that one.
But I'm just thinking out loud, but I definitely want to call the Experience Olympia and Beyond. I mean, I don't know what they've got in their computers and in their, but I mean, the kind of video you're describing, I would imagine that they produce those kinds of videos. I've seen certain videos they've done about the Bountiful Byway and about the heritage or the sandstone distillery and things like that, like highlighting businesses. So I mean, is it duplicative of what is available to us through the work of Experience Olympia and Beyond to some extent? I mean, that'd just be a question I'd want answered.
It absolutely will be duplicative. I'm not saying that it's not. I mean, we probably going to be highlighting probably the same areas. Mm-hmm. So I'm not here to sell you a bag of goods that is totally different. No, I'm here just to provide an opportunity. But certainly, if the board doesn't feel comfortable with this idea, please don't feel obligated to move forward in this proposal.
I would very much like to have you look into it. And I think this is a possibility for economic development. At the same time, we're promoting the good things that Thurston County has done. So I think it's a benefit all the way around. Might bring some
high-tech investment, a good job producing stuff, but not much wear and tear on our environment and stuff. I think it can be beneficial.
Can we bring this back in a week?
You
need an answer today.
Unfortunately, I met with the individual last week, and I brought this. I had a conversation with Brian, and obviously they have a deadline. The deadline's the end of this week, whether we want to pull the trigger or not.
Can we see a video right now? Can you pull it up? I mean, because I would like to see like a video.
What's an example of what we're gonna get? I'm not gonna vote for it without at least that minimal amount of, and I can get back to you later this week, which is fine.
Well, maybe when Brian gets it brought up, we can go ahead with some business here until he gets it brought up, and then he can say, okay.
Do that. Let's go to item 9, compression brake restriction, follow-up from our July 20th public hearing.
Yeah, you received public testimony on the held a public hearing on July 20 related to proposals for you to consider putting compression brake restrictions in 2 locations. One over Churchill Road, that's from just about south of 507 to the end of the road, and the other one's Little Rock. Albany Road Southeast and Sergeant Road. The public testimony was, I think it was a handful or less than that. And even the board members, as you may recall, had a conversation whether this is all inclusive, not all, or just a single one, and you asked to delay this item until I believe you have the opportunity to have a field trip. And I know you did that. So bring it back for your consideration and see where you want to go with this.
Matt, could you tell me what the speed limit is on Churchill Road?
35 miles per hour.
And the area down on Little Rock Road, what's the speed limit in the considered road?
30 miles per hour.
30 miles, okay. Yeah, okay, let me ask you one other thing because nobody else jumped in. Even if we had a no Jake brake area, for safety purposes, a trucker is, kid's ball rolls out in the street or, bicycle. Some safety issue develops, they're still allowed to use their Jake brake as their.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
I thought we already made a decision on Little Rock and we were just, we didn't?
Not yet.
Oh, I thought we made a decision on one but not the other. Okay.
I drove Churchill Road. I've never driven a truck, so I'm kind of operating at a deficiency here to know what kinds of situations require the implementation of these compression brakes. But what I can tell you about this road is that it's hilly, it's windy, there's blind curves, there's slopes, and I'm not really comfortable micromanaging people's use of safety equipment on their vehicles in a road like this. Now, Little Rock is different, and I'm fine with that, but I don't think I'm on board for Churchill unless my seatmates want to twist my arm.
I'm not either, so.
No, I drove past it too, and I have a Honda, and so, yeah, there was a lot of times where I had to like slow way down just to go through some of the curves, so.
Yes. I don't know if there's any like intermediate signage that like is sort of, residential area use of compression brakes discouraged or something like that that's ever been used anywhere that would be appropriate. But I could see something like that just as a courtesy. If I were a truck driver and I was trying to be courteous to my neighbors, but they know that. They drive the road, they see the houses. So
I would echo that support and even ask you to put a sign up like that. I don't see any reason why you couldn't have a sign like that. Just asking for cooperation. What's that going to cost? I don't know, $50 or something. I have no idea. But I'm not in favor of putting that restriction on. We don't have any enforcement capability, and I don't see it as a problem. The one area where they're allowed to use it, they really need it, that steep portion of Churchill Road, so. Anyway, I think we're all.
So we're up
agreeing
on
there.
Little Rock and down on Churchill.
Okay.
I think that's the unanimous
So
consensus.
Little Rock approved, and Churchill Road not approved. Thank you.
All right, got what you need, Matt?
County manager. So I'm gonna obviously have to update that ordinance. So I'll update that ordinance and then bring it back in as agenda item.
Let's talk about that.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, we're down to commissioners' items. We've got several. Number one is the James Family Farm Conservation's Futures Agreement.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners. As you may recall, this project was awarded funds in 2020 using the Conservation Futures application cycle. It is sponsored by the Community Farm Land Trust, and the project is scheduled to acquire 29 acres, 16 acres prime farmland, 13 acres undeveloped forest, wetlands, riparian, and floodplain. It is located on James Road, approximately 2 miles southeast of Rochester. The total cost of this project, the acquisition of the 29 acres, $201,500. The conservation features is supporting $132,300 out of the $201,000. This is just for your awareness. Now we have an agreement drafted, and in the past, I just like to bring this item to keep you up to date. So you will see, since the board already made the decision to award this grant, I will circulate this agreement for your signature, so I don't want to surprise you when that comes in your signature packet. That's the item, plain and simple.
You said farmland, but you didn't mention gopher habitat benefit.
This is, as you may recall, the conservation futures, the board made a decision to separate two things. Portions of that is to continue to support the pocket gopher purchasing real estate to support the HCP. But also, it was a grant cycle. The board like to exercise, in which we focusing on farmland as well as wetlands, riparian, and floodplain. So it's two different aspects, and as you may recall, there was a lot of conversations on how the criteria was set out to do. Added a little bit of salmon recovery type of that criteria. So this portion of the conservation features is outside of the focus of the HCP.
But if it is gopher habitat, which I think I heard that it was gopher habitat, why can't we benefit from any time, I mean, that we make a purchase? If there's benefit there, why can't we receive it? We're spending tax dollars to accomplish the goal. Why wouldn't we get some benefit from having habitat for Mazama pocket?
I think we can.
I won't limit it. I won't limit it to that, but say to endangered species.
Well,
we could have a frog there as well.
We could have a frog.
And maybe a meadowlark, or Vesper's sparrow or something.
That, in a way, is just my perspective. You know, certainly is an opportunity. We changed the conditions in which the applicant submitted that application, and if we're gonna be asking to put some restrictions, then now they have to provide credits out of this purchase. It changes the conditions a little bit.
What's the difference? I mean, I don't know what we're asking them to do. I thought we were purchasing it for habitat protection, just in general. I think we've got somebody here that's got some knowledge on this topic.
I remember we actually discussed this specifically because we were trying to fund more projects, and we were like, well, if we don't give our non-HCP dollars to this, could they get in on the HCP side? And the answer was maybe, but not. It wasn't clear. We weren't going to limit them to that.
I think you've summarized it well, Jennifer Davis, Community Planning Manager. There are multiple species benefits that can come with our investment of conservation futures dollars in with our land trust partners, and they go out, they acquire property, they acquire the easements. They're the owners and operators of that property, not us. That's one pathway. And then later down the road, we may be able to work with those land trust property owners to figure out the issue of getting credits off of those properties. But that's a little bit of an unknown. Right now, we're focused on actually directly purchasing our own easements or acquiring property for the HCP, where we know there's habitat benefit and credits available for the HCP. So that's how we're kind of splitting the pot, as the county manager described.
And so I'd also jump in. Joshua Cummings, Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. We had this conversation, as has been stated, and to answer your question, Commissioner Edwards, the door is not closed.
Okay.
So we wanted to have this acquisition, and as Jennifer has just relayed, down the road may have that conversation, but focus now on the big pots, on acquiring our own land.
Good enough, thank you.
So you will see this agreement come in your signature packet. I don't want to surprise you.
Next is LP Brown and Single Tree Estates Code Compliance Update.
Yeah,
versus here, Josh.
Josh and Brad is going to provide a perspective. The board is well familiar with those code compliance issues, LP Brown and Single Tree Estates. And I believe we have very good news to share today. When you're ready.
We do. Yeah, so Joshua Cummings, Community Planning and Economic Development Director, CPED, joined by Brett Burris, our Development Services Manager. Within Brett's group is the Code Compliance Group, which engages when you, commissioners, or any other group here at the county receives complaints about difficult properties. They go through the Code Compliance Group within Brett's group, and they enact Title 26, which we have brought before the board in the past few years, and the goal is with cooperative compliance. So if there's items on the property that need to be cleaned up, if there's difficult structures that pose danger to the community, we work with those individuals, those property owners, to have cooperative compliance. We do issue notice of violations, there are penalties involved, and when all of those different recourses that work through the different stages of cooperative compliance within Title 26 do not end in a positive result, we move it to the next stage, and we haven't done this for very many. I think that Brett has the stats on the number of compliance issues that we received in 2020 versus the number that have risen to this level of difficulty. You have that handy by chance?
I do. Compliance cases in 2020 was 246 total.
So just in 1 year, 246. And we receive about that every year. We currently have multiple cases that have just piled up over the years, but there's a few, and we brought these to the board's attention over the last couple of years, that rose to the level of needing potential court action. And the first one, when we started the court proceedings, that individual actually cleaned up their property, so cooperative compliance worked. The second one is this one, Single Tree Estates, which we'll address, and we reached out on multiple occasions to the property owner, and the board directed the CPED to engage in abatement, which is a fancy word for cleanup. Get it cleaned up and get a lien placed on the property. And the third path is potential abatement, which is the property becomes the ownership of the entity that files the court proceedings. So let's focus on Single Tree Estates as the big success. And a timeline has been provided to the county manager. First off, I want to provide huge thanks to the Board of County Commissioners. The difference between this and all the other years that we've tried to engage on this is the clear direction from the Board of County Commissioners. You clearly said, please abate this property. You clearly put money in the budget for funding this at $50,000 for the cleanup process. And you clearly directed CPED to work with the members of the Single Tree Estates Homeowners Association. So secondly, I'd like to provide huge thanks to the Homeowners Association representatives, Cindy Anderson and Gwen Staples. Those two individuals, what we've found most important is having a community partner. And they provided, I would say, the catalyst and the fuel to keep this process going. And one of the things to remember is there's always a property owner involved here. And so being respectful of the property owner's rights is one of the most important things. And then also providing a level of empathy. And I would say that Ms. Staples and Ms. Anderson provided clear documentation, tenacity, creative thinking, and empathy as we worked through this project. And so that's just like this big buildup to the timeline, which from their perspective starts about 15 years ago. But from our perspective in CPED, once we received the direction from the Board of County Commissioners, began with coordinated engagement with other departments. So we worked with the prosecuting attorney's office, we worked with public health, CPED, as well as the commissioner's assistants. Vicki Larkin was a huge piece of getting this started, then Robin Court's assistance to Commissioner Edwards. And that began in August of 2018. We got full direction to move forward from the board. Singletree Estates said, please take the lead in the court proceedings. Prosecuting attorneys drafted multiple opportunities to reach out to the property owner. The property owner on occasion did respond, which extended the time from time to time. Again, you've got to give the property owner every opportunity to do the cleanup. And so this led all the way through up to, we're headed to court in March of 2020 to Superior Court to begin the warrant of abatement process when all of a sudden the global pandemic occurred. And that shut down the civil proceedings that the courts were engaged in. And we had to wait until those opened back up. And as soon as they did, Scott Cushing in the prosecuting attorney's office was on the spot, filed motions to get the warrant of abatement, which allows the county to actually access the property to do the cleanup. We were issued that warrant of abatement by Superior Court on February 5th. Brett then engaged with Public Works to follow the proper RFP process for cleanup. And then the board approved on June of 2021, the funding. So we had the RFP process, the funding, the warrant of abatement, all of that put together. And within 6 weeks, the team at Public Works had gone through the RFP process, had gone through the review of them, had hired a contractor, had gone through the asbestos process, had got all the proper permits from ORCA, and had it cleaned up on August 3rd of 2021. And you've got pictures, I think, in your packet of what it looked like before, what it looked like during, and what it looked like after. And it's a huge change. And from our perspective, this isn't only a health concern or a property issue concern, this also is an economic development issue, because this property sits at the opening to this community. And so when people drive in to look at the properties here, the first thing they see is this difficult property, and it immediately impacts the perspective of that neighborhood. And so what we just did right there, with this entire team of people, we created a success for community members in partnership with those community members. And your leadership and direction got us there. And when we did this, the hope was not just to create a one-off success, but to create a process that we can replicate. And what we found is important in those processes is that partnership. So clear direction, partnership from the community, and leadership got us to this, and we hope then to move to the next success, which is LP Brown. But before I do that, any questions on the long-winded update from Singletree?
I guess I'd just like to comment that both Cindy and Gwen, I believe their middle names are tenacious because they have been on this.
Cindy T. Anderson.
Okay. And thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Yeah, these pictures are.
Yep, County Manager.
I think you touched base on this. When we went to court and had an abatement for this property, it was on the responsibility of the property owner to clean up. That actually didn't work out. As you stated, the board set aside some funding for us to be proactive so we don't miss that deadline of the court ruling. So this is, again, a successful project, but also we're going to be able to put a lien on the property when we be recovering the cost that we invested to clean this property, correct?
Yes, thank you, County Manager. That's a very important part. So it's the construction cost, the cost of demolition, it's the cost that went into all the staff time, the legal time. We're putting all of that information together and have a correct accounting that will go into the creation of the lien that goes on the property, so that when the property is potentially sold in the future, the county recoups the money that was invested in the cleanup of the property. Thank you very much.
How much did we spend on all this? Like, is it less than we thought or more than we thought? Or
less than we thought in terms of the demo, but the total cost we haven't fully calculated yet. We still need the staff time put together. So you put in 50,000 in the, I'm looking at Robin, I'm not sure what the name of it's called, discretionary fund, I guess. And so of that 50,000, of that in the construction cost, we spent around 20.
The engineer's estimate was just over 20,000, and the contract came in just over 15,000.
So the construction part of it, about 20, but we need to add on the other costs that aren't part of the construction before we give you the full total number. Is that helpful?
Let's talk LP Brown.
LP Brown. And so leaning back on the initial conversation, that the first part is respect for the property owner, and then the second part is ensuring that we have a community partner. We have reached out to the property owner on multiple occasions. We've found this property owner to actually be less responsive than the Single Tree Estates property owner, which in the past we have recommended potentially to the board, and you haven't made this decision yet, so I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but that would go down an abatement process, and that would go down a condemnation process. And that would mean that we or another entity takes full ownership of that property. The other quote-unquote entity that would have the condemnation rights would be the Olympia School District, given that the LP Brown, the property known as LP Brown, is adjacent to LP Brown Elementary. And so we've had multiple conversations with, I'm gonna get the title right, the Assistant Superintendent of Finance and the Capital Projects Manager, as well as the Director of Planning and Construction. We most recently met with them on July 9th, including Brett and our prosecuting attorney's office. They are interested in partnership. They do see that there's value. They've got concepts of what the highest and best use may be. One of the reasons I'm being a little bit slow to what I completely provide in this setting is they need to meet with their school board before we have any formal conversations about what the partnership looks like. But I am encouraged by our legal counsel's perspective. Travis Burns has provided, I think, a very clear perspective on how we could move forward. I'm encouraged that the Olympia School District has reached out to us directly. And I think that there is a portion where we could use some support from the Board of County Commissioners, as well as interested parties near the LP Brown Elementary. We have received complaints in the past from members of the parent-teacher organization. So again, putting all those pieces together and having those community partners is going to be helpful as we build on the successes that we did with Single Tree Estates in the process, on this process. The condemnation process is going to be more involved and likely take 2 to 3 years from legal counsel's perspective, whereas the abatement process is shorter. The condemnation process has more surety in the end on the financial impacts. And so we're waiting a little bit on Olympia School District to have their kind of next steps in terms of partnership, but I am very encouraged by the ongoing conversations. Is that helpful?
And while we're waiting, I'm turning to the county manager, is it possible that we can take some of the $50,000 that we allocated and replace the fencing that the fire department removed from the property that's right next to the school?
Yeah, certainly, because the $50,000 that you set aside on the budget amendment was to address the code compliance. Certainly there will be an opportunity. Let's explore that possibility, but I believe there is an option.
I think our teammates are interested in that, but
yeah.
It seems like the fire department had it up there for a long time, but they recently removed it. And with school coming, I'd sure like to have fencing up there before school while we figure out the long-term solution.
Okay.
Okay, great. What else do you need, Josh?
I don't need anything else. I've got this whole email that was sent to the county manager. It's got the list of the actual humans that I wanted to thank by name.
It's included in it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I've been looking at this.
Great. Because it really took a village to have this accomplished, and the coordination. I really appreciate Brett Burris and all of his leadership in this process.
Hillary keeps getting it right. Dang.
I was going to cite my source.
Okay.
Anything else, questions?
Yeah, can I get a blow up of this one for my wall?
Yeah. The before and after
Beautiful picture. The blank through. Yeah. Good job, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Don't go anywhere, CPED team. Shoreline Master Program is next. Jennifer Davis, Josh Cummins.
This is a follow-up to the conversation that you had related to the updated shoreline management plan, where the board asked for a couple of things. One is you set an expectation that it was delivered to the planning commission to set and hold a public hearing by the middle of October. Jennifer is going to be reporting that she was extremely successful in delivering the message, and I believe the planning commission has set a public hearing for October 20th.
Yes, they have.
So that is moving forward. So thank you for your support, commissioners. The other item is you wanted to find out how much the cost will be to increase the mailing of the postcard, and also you like to see how the postcard is. So I have attached in your packet a copy of the postcard, and as well as attached is the cost. I believe it will cost just about $3,500 to go with 11,000 residents. Is that
That was based on our initial calculation. Once again, Jennifer Davis, Community Planning Manager, of the number of parcels. And then what we did was we had our GIS staff winnow that down to just property owners, since some owners own multiple parcels. So if we want to mail the postcard out to every shoreline property owner, it will be about 8,700 folks that we're mailing it out to. So those mailing costs will be a little bit less, but it's definitely doable.
What's the 3,500? That was
for based on an 11,000 number of potential postcards being sent out.
Which is not all the property owners in the tribe.
No, it would have been. And what we did was that was based on the number of parcels covered by shoreline jurisdiction. But then we went through and took that GIS list and made a mailing list that hits just the property owners who own multiple parcels. It's actually about 8,700.
Oh, not $8,700.
No. Sorry.
I thought 3,500 went to 8,700.
No.
Like, how does that work?
No, so it will be somewhat. It will be likely less than $3,500
okay.
for the printing and the mailing from our contractor, which we're poised to do like ASAP.
So is that what the board wants to do?
Yeah, I think we're obligated to let people know.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Excellent. And the rest of our public outreach campaign is launching.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I know on the verbiage on here, your first part, I mean, the postcard with the kids and playing on the beach, your last sentence, your future plans to use or develop your property could be affected properly. I think that's the truth. But I do think on where you say, please join us for a virtual open house where you can see how these changes will affect your property, because I don't think there's anything that's proposed in the shoreline management proposal that leaves anything to doubt that it is going to affect their property.
That's not true.
It's not true?
No. I mean, we're not, first of all,
I thought
we're the ones that
we've
decide
got
what's
it
going
gone
on.
up though already, don't we? Isn't it the proposal?
We're the
already?
ones that decide what changes, and my understanding is certain designations don't have to change at all, and there are certain properties that won't be affected at all.
Okay. Well, maybe if that's true, then I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought there was already some proposals laid down.
There are proposals laid out, but the choice of the language, are you talking about may versus will? I mean, I think that not every property will be impacted by the changes. The regulations may not change for many people.
Okay, so we're going out to every property owner.
Yeah, every property owner within shoreline jurisdiction.
Good. Commissioner Meehan, good with that?
Yeah.
All right, is that it for
Thank you very much.
program? Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, we're getting there. Public testimony. Two issues here.
Excuse me, Chair. Before you folks leave the room, I just see one other thing. We on August 9th to September 13th.
That was the draft, so.
Yeah, are we gonna change that so that the
it's being
dates are more
updated.
applicable?
Yeah, just to update you,
Okay,
the virtual.
just glancing through it.
The open house will run August 13th through October 20th. So many weeks of public outreach and open houses.
Okay, thank you.
Hold on one second, actually.
Yeah.
Let's use this as an opportunity to launch the public outreach. Maybe give a quick synopsis of what we're doing in outreach.
So the public outreach plan is the direct mailing of the postcard, press release, media release, Brian is familiar with this, social media release, web mail to our extensive listserv list of interested parties, opportunity for interest groups such as lake management districts. We're already teed up to go visit one of those in September to have one-on-one presentations from staff, an online virtual open house, which includes the full draft of changes, an interactive map showing how the shoreline environment designations are proposed to change from 1990 to this draft, And also many fact sheets on all different topics covered by the Shoreline Master Program, from aquaculture to buffers to what you're doing on your property to conservation and stewardship. So pretty extensive program.
And I've said it before, but I'll say it again, the board's direction was to give as much broad outreach on this program as possible to move it forward as quickly as possible. And I appreciate the work of Jennifer and her team to implement the board's direction on this project.
As quickly as possible after 8 years have passed. So I just want to say, we're not trying to, I'm just saying, this is important, and like, I don't want the impression to be like, we just want to jam this through. Like, this is because we're pushing now because there's been considerable work that's gone into this over many years.
Yeah, I know it was somewhat tongue-in-cheek comment, but absolutely on point too. Yeah. It has been a long journey.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And there's more to come.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4 is
Fire Marshal.
testimony. Oh yeah, Fire Marshal, you're not going anywhere. Fireworks is a topic for.
This is a public testimony you received a couple of weeks ago related to fireworks, and it was on the heels of we as a county, based on the extreme weather conditions, we banned the discharge of fireworks. We didn't ban the sale, we banned the discharge of fireworks. That is still as part of the code. So the public testimony was related to, in so many different words, of the enforcement. Where is the enforcement? Because it really wasn't an enforcement. They called the sheriff's office and so on and so forth. So they requested to have a form a citizens group to provide recommendations to the board. You know, and
who requested that?
That citizen.
A citizen.
A citizen.
A citizen. Okay.
You know, and I have you know a perspective I'd like to share with the board. County sanctioned group of citizens to provide public testimony may be too much. Provide recommendations, because they're right. There is not some teeth on that ordinance. Whether we ban on the discharge of fireworks based on extreme weather conditions, there is not civil penalties. There is nothing in terms of that enforcement. My recommendation to you is to authorize the fire marshal to reach out to that group, and they're more than welcome to have their own group and provide recommendations to the board as to how you can consider enhancing that particular piece of the code. That's my two.
But without an official sanction.
I don't recommend that.
Can you? I'm sorry, I was writing some notes. Can you repeat what the ask was, or the proposal from the?
The proposal was for the board to consider creating a county sanctioned citizen group to look for ways to enhance the fireworks ordinance that we have in place.
Enhance in what way?
Well, that's the purpose of their group. They can meet and provide recommendations, but I believe they can probably meet as the citizens, provide recommendations to the fire marshal, and the fire marshal provide recommendations to you.
I'm good with that myself. I don't think we need another committee. It's an ongoing committee. There's citizens that have concerns out there. It's a good outreach for Josh to stay in touch.
That work?
Certainly.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, board on that.
So, and I will briefly report that as well this afternoon.
Okay.
Thank you. Next, under public testimony follow-up is fossil fuel emails.
So, no action on this for you today, commissioners. I myself, and I believe Commissioner Messer at least, had received your two emails. I received close to 25 emails, and attaches the email that I received. It's just from a citizen in this case, but it's the same format, the same aspects. In a nutshell, they're requesting the county to take some actions, and let me just narrow down on the the sixth paragraph on this email. The rest is a background related to what county has done, because they do have refineries. They acknowledge that Thurston County may not have refineries, but they said other communities, by passing policies to stop fossil fuel expansion, by limiting fossil fuel use in new building construction, banning new gas stations, electrifying public transit, and so much more. So I just want to bring to your attention the series of emails that I have received. And again, I don't expect for you to engage in this conversation, but if there's an opportunity to explore this in more details, I'll be more than happy to do so.
So for me, I mean, I received so many of them, and one, I didn't know if they were from here. Most of the emails that I got, I didn't know if they were community members from Thurston County and other things. I was like, well, we're doing a lot of things with the climate mitigation plan, and I know that the steering committee is working on it. I don't know, shouldn't this go through the steering committee and
They can always participate, I guess, with that group. We have public meetings.
The answer to one of your questions is yes, I recognize several of the people, they're local people. They're I think they're picking up on something Whatcom County did. And you know, Whatcom County is, if you look at their ordinance, I had Thomasina pull it, it's super detailed. I mean, they've worked, because of their big oil refineries.
They have refineries there.
They've been working for, I mean, the lawyers that had to have been involved in drafting what they actually came up with is way beyond anything that would apply in Thurston County. You know, I guess just my thoughts on it were that, I mean, I feel very strongly about this issue, and obviously, and I been asked as a commissioner to take stands, the board has been asked to take stands on what I would call random issues. Random only in the sense that they don't have that close of a connection to county business. For example, in my first year, we were asked to do something about nuclear power. We were asked to do something about the Middle East and, you know, war, peace, promoting peace, and things that don't really relate to what I see as my business as county commissioner. I always ask myself, is there a nexus here? You know, I think sometimes expressing an opinion or taking a stand just to kind of signal to your higher levels of government that this is important at the local level can be useful. I always ask myself, is there a nexus to our county business? I think there is here because, as you say, we're pouring a lot of resources and effort into the climate mitigation with our plan. So I think there could be a basis. My question is, between what Whatcom did and between the draft ordinance that's on the website that was provided, there's a lot of stuff that kind of flies around, and I'm not sure. I think if this board chose to do something, it would need to be kind of narrowed down and kind of stripped down to sort of an expression of just a policy position, kind of a recommendation to our leaders in the state and stuff. As a, you know, it's kind of about a public information campaign in a sense. It's like, you know, if the newspaper writes about that, local governments are stepping up to call for action on, you know, elimination of fossil fuel, electrifying the grid, all these things, which our state's doing a pretty good job with, frankly. But anyway, I don't have a problem with that. It would just need, I guess what I'm saying is, I'm willing to talk about it. It would need some work to hone it down and make it appropriate for what the true nexus is to Thurston County's activities and business. You know, I don't know, for example, like we have the Port of Olympia. I don't know to what extent, you know, I would want to make sure that it was well thought out what we were trying to do. And so I don't know if it's worth it to the board to, you know, engage in that type of a analysis and work to put it together in a way that's most appropriate. I think we'd have to reach out to the port and probably the climate steering committee. We could kick it to the climate steering committee. It kind of sounds like what you're suggesting.
Yeah.
That's fine too, if that's what the board's pleasure is. I am interested in it though.
Well, I'm interested as well, but I do think you lay it out pretty clear. And, but the one thing that always bothers me as we move forward, because I think you say is there a nexus to us? And I think, yes, there is. And we've done our part, or we continue to do our part from our local level to work on this. But what really bothers me is that, I don't know, the NATO countries in Europe, you know, they've just authorized a new oil pipeline coming out of Russia to supply them with new fossil fuel. And I believe it's India, China, and Pakistan are putting a new coal-fired power plant online every day. And so what we're gonna do is gonna have an impact, but the small percentage of impact compared to what the rest of the world needs to do, if we're gonna get ahead of this, is often lost in the reporting, I guess is the best way to put it. Might get the last paragraph or something like that. Because I think the priority is, if we're all gonna do this, there's been quite a push this week having to do with climate change, and forest fires, and all the other stuff that goes with it. But we can't do this ourselves. And this business about holding us to a higher standard, I think, is detrimental to our society, and we all need to do our part. I recognize that, but so do other parts of the world.
Well, that, I mean, and again, just kind of piggybacking on that, that could be what goes into the resolution like this. Is we can't do this, well, Thurston County is doing X, Y, Z. We can't do this alone. We call on our state and federal leaders to work with the, NATO and, China and everything.
Sure.
This is critical, and it's gonna take a massive effort, and we want this. Thurston County wants to move toward elimination of fossil fuels for all these reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be what it says.
Okay.
So maybe 2 steps based on what I'm hearing. Let me send this to the Allison Osberg as part of the Climate Steering Committee for them to just have a conversation among yourselves. And maybe the result of that conversation could result in giving some information or some meat into that proposed resolution.
I appreciate that.
I believe we all have concerns. I really do. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good? Yeah. Okay, other commissioner items may get aced out here because we have an executive session in 11 minutes.
And I think you requested the video. Do you have that video?
Yeah, Amy's gonna pull it up.
Okay, perfect. Let's do that.
Great.
See, I recognized some of the names on the emails and other names. I was like, I never.
Yeah, I don't know about all of them, but.
So,
Will the citizens be able to see this that we're gonna see?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yes, yes, they will. So this video is from Marion. Here, let me get on the speaker. This video is from Marion County, Oregon. That's also the capital county of their state. So I thought it was comparable to us.
Burn of trash.
I think they do it.
Do you think they're gonna feature that in the?
Well, it's great. Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, you're not seeing.
Sound isn't quite there yet, maybe, yeah?
It's not playing.
It's not playing. We're just getting access.
Oh.
Jeez.
There it is. Ready to broadcast, Brian? Oh, it's broadcasting.
You should be able to play it.
Okay.
Marion County has the capital, state capital, Salem, Oregon, and we are about 1,100 square miles, a lot of farmland, more cities than any other Oregon county. We have 20 cities, most of them very small, but the nucleus is really Marion County has the capital, state capital, Salem, Oregon, and we are about 1,100 square miles, a lot of farmland, more cities than any other Oregon county. We have 20 cities, most of them very small, but the nucleus is really Salem and Kaiser, and that's what I call the suburban area. We're a suburban rural county.
Marion County is a great place to live. It is unusual to be an hour from the beach and an hour from the mountains, to be able to get to Central Oregon and all the beauty that the desert provides. Living in this town, in this county, is a really neat place to live, not just because of the community collaboration we have, but because of the natural resources that are available to us.
I think collaboration is one of the things that we do really well here. I have been with the county for about 11 years, and just in that time, what we see is we see our department heads, we see our elected officials, we see our community members come together where they see gaps in the system, and they, instead of saying, we need more money for this, or they really look, what are the gaps and what can we do if we work together? So if one area is really good at something, we're really good at something, and we all come together, we can improve our service and improve our outcomes for the residents of Marion County.
The people that work together in Marion County really work together well. It's been a reputation that we've had for years and years. Some of it is, I think, just by the nature of the people that are elected or appointed to positions, and they just do well together. But the other is that we have a lot of needs in Marion County that have to be addressed. We have 4 prisons, used to be 5 in Marion County. We have the state hospital for people with psychiatric diagnoses. We have 2 juvenile detention facilities from the state level. All of those facilities and institutions have brought a lot of need into the county, loved ones that come to be near people who are living in prison. And there's just generations of people that have been living in poverty with social needs. So the collaboration has really become essential, mental health, public safety, to be able to address a lot of these needs.
Early on in my career, I saw a number of people that ultimately would have to end up being arrested that were in mental health crisis, and the criminal justice system is not the best place for those individuals. So any time that we can do a good job of identifying, de-escalating the situation, and diverting people to community resources, we do better by the person, we do better for our community, we do better for public safety.
So the aid and assist process that we have established here is geared toward helping those individuals who can't aid and assist in their own criminal process. So they've been charged with the crime, but they are too affected by their mental disease to be able to go forward in the criminal justice process. Before our program, those individuals would typically languish at our state hospital or in our jails because we could never get them healthy enough to be in court. Our aid and assist process is really trying to get them out of our jail, out of our state hospital, giving them community wraparound services so that they can be aided in the community, get healthier, get better, and in some cases, avoid the criminal justice process altogether.
I think collaboration is at the heart of the work that we do. We collaborate with the law enforcement department and the courts, and with those diverse perspectives, you have to have a strong partnership in order to make good decisions for the people that we're serving.
So the Marion County Reentry Initiative has been in existence for about 7 years. It's a collaborative effort between our office, the Sheriff's Office, Board of Commissioners, our Health Department, the District Attorney's Office. It's really an array of services that we provide. One of the biggest services is the supervision of offenders who come back to our community from the Department of Corrections, and the programming that we have to assist those individuals so that they don't commit crimes and end up back in the criminal justice system.
So the Crisis Outreach Response Team is really a collaboration between mental health and our law enforcement partners. And they are able to contact these individuals after they've had contact with the criminal justice system and ensure that they stay healthy so they don't come back into the system and find themselves back in that loop where we find them in our jail, in our state hospital, or in severe need of other mental health services.
Individuals can languish sometimes in the hospital where it's not the best place for them. So what we've developed is a trusting, mutually respectful relationship with these partners who are sitting across the table, making really careful and thoughtful decisions about when can we bring somebody into the community to get them the supports they need, to get them connected back with their families, to establish housing, to provide mental health services for them so they can return to the quality of life they want. A mental health condition shouldn't be a life sentence to an institution. The services we have in Marion County and this really remarkable collaboration we have with law enforcement really helps us to do that.
Going forward in Marion County, I think we only get better. I think the partnerships that we're building, the relationships that we're building, really allows us to rely on each other as a team, to rely on the information that we give each other, and to help those in our community get better because of that.
So obviously the county focus on a specific, side of their business.
God, salmon rehabilitation is better.
Not necessarily. It's just, this is just an example of the production element. So please don't take this as a direction as how you may consider. I think it may be an opportunity to have a different view of Thurston County. This production program.
I think we already do most of that anyway, pretty good.
Right.
Absolutely. Anyway, I'm still interested in it. I'd like to see what they've got to offer. It isn't exactly what I was thinking. I thought we'd see a bridge being built.
Well, don't focus too much on the content.
Yeah.
It's just more the context, the production elements.
I felt they started out great and then I was like, oh.
The production value is good.
The production, yeah.
Like the trails and things that we offer you. I would think a company looking at that, and boy, their employees would have that asset to access to.
So maybe we have a planning session on Friday. Maybe I can, if you don't think about this, I can probably bring this on Friday morning for you to grab direction.
Could we reach out to Annette Pitts and see if this is something she would be?
Who?
Annette Pitts, for the new executive director for
Yeah, we can probably see.
And see if they would be interested in partnering with us or.
But we do have, the Deschutes Falls Park, that's a great place. That'd be better than their waterfall.
Splitting the cost with us.
Yeah, maybe helping us along. And the EDC, some ideas, because I really do.
I don't know what the flexibility is, but that was a lot of interviews with just staff, which we can do with an iPhone. I would only be interested if it could be more of a promotional video with a lot more out there.
That's what my suggestion, my conversation is. I'm not interested in having interviews. I know that probably some of you would like to say a few
I'll defer
words,
to the chair of the
but
board.
For me, it was more about showcasing Thurston County.
Yeah, I would be one. If I was talking, I would not want to talk about programs. I want to talk about Thurston County.
Right. And that is
we're a special place where we kind of where they, like you say, where they started about. We have farmland. We have the most cities. We have, we can get to the mountains and the ocean and the rivers and.
That was my suggestion is the Bountiful Byway.
The last piece of prairie.
The footage of the
within an hour you can be anywhere.
Footage of the waterfront. It just driving through Thurston County provides beautiful footage in building a story, because I wasn't focused on no. My idea was not to. There was a Debbie Downer of this.
It was more like a news program, basically. It was what of like, oh, here's what we're doing to advance policies in our county. Yeah. All right, let's do our executive session. We'll revisit this Friday.
Started out great. We pumped you up. You were like, oh, okay. And then they just.
So I need to announce this.
Yes.
Okay, very good. So that brings us to item 10.6, which is an executive session pursuant to RCW 42301101I to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency matters relating to agency enforcement actions, or to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation. Medic 1 is the specific topic. Commissioner's action may follow. We are estimated for
10 minutes.
10 minutes. It is 12 o'clock, so at approximately 12:10, we'll come out of executive session and take action or not and adjourn the meeting. So with that, we are going to go into executive session.